Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about the design process. And as you know, I am in Las Vegas on my way to the hospitality convention. And I wanted to get this out to you. Don't forget also today is your midterm. So we are going to go over, I believe it's chapter 7. Let's take a look at that of the design process. So let's get started. Now, I know you guys learned all about the elements and principles of design, and we talked a lot about them. So I want to, like I do, get dressed. I wanted to point out my outfit to you. So if you look at my outfit, start thinking about what are a element in my outfit. We discussed that the other day. And then when we talk about principles, think about some of the principles in my outfit. For instance, what is the focal point? So I'm sure you guys remember and probably can easily guess. So I don't know if you're able to put in the chat, but we can talk about this when I get back. Okay, let's get started as I start our PowerPoint presentation on chapter 7, the design process. So as we know, interior design is a problem-solving activity. We improve people's accommodations. We positively shape behavior. We talked a little bit about this. We want to talk about the benefits of good design and what that does and what that includes. So the benefits of good design, and this is in your book, includes facilitating the functionality, making sure it functions above all things. Design has to work. Secondly, we make sure that we grab people's attention, especially in like retail or in hospitality. Any market that people drive by and we want to grab their attention with the design. Even in our homes, we have those focal points and things that grab their attention. We want to increase comfort in a space, simplify something that's very complex, perhaps. We want to communicate innovation, enhance the visibility of a space, create recall. We talked a little bit about that familiarity when you go to have a sense of place where if you think of your grandmother's house or a vacation spot. We also designed to build brand awareness. Like we were talking about T-Mobile, they use that bright pink. And we know when we think of bright pink, we think of T-Mobile. Or when we think of two red circles in each other, we think of Target, right? We also want to increase sales. I want to increase, make sure that my design for my restaurants help increase sales of the space. Also safety, preventing accidents, increasing hand grip, increasing, like I said, the functionality of it too. So a lot of times we have a client has a problem, and one of it is it doesn't function correctly. Could be a bad designed kitchen or a bedroom or a space in a commercial. So these are the benefits of some good design. They offer so many complex options and benefits. So what does good design look like? Well, first of all, it solves the problem. It functions well, like we said. It integrates those elements and principles. Like I said, those are the ingredients to make good design. And it uses the appropriate materials, adds beauty or aesthetic value, and reflects the meaning and the intent the owner wanted. Also, it impacts the environment in which we live, right? You don't want an eyesore design, and you also want it to be healthy and responsible to the environment. So let's just get into each one. So problem solving, the need to solve the problem is the difference between good and bad design. If you didn't solve the problem, it's already not a good design. Whether it looks great or not, if you didn't meet your client's needs by solving an issue, then no matter how beautiful it looks, it falls short of good design. Creativity, innovation are assets also in solving problems. We see this a lot in HD shows and stuff. Designers coming up with quick ideas of how to use creativity to create a space or separate a space or solve one of the issues. So successfully solving problem solving is a key to design, to be able to think outside the box, to look for solutions. And this really is done with the more experience you have in education, you're able to come up with better ideas. Just recently, my clients chose they didn't want to put a specialty panel in the back of their a reception area. And so instead of wasting the material, I wanted to utilize it in a different area. So we replaced it and put it in the conference room where it could really be a showstopper. So this is ways of solving some problems and issues and creating some interesting design solutions. Secondly, we want it to function well. Nothing's worse than an ill-fitted, non-functioning space. So good design, really, you have to have a plan. And this is where you learn space planning and how to make the space work. We use these and aspects of good design. It's noticeable, people can tell. And the amount of functionality also changes with different age and design groups. So what might function for a young family might be different than for maybe an aging age group. So it kind of varies between client. But making sure, and this is where we get that expression, form over function, okay? Function is key. Did you solve the problem, and does the space function well, and is it efficient, okay? Especially when I'm doing commercial, is an office efficiently run? Does the kitchen and the back of the house and the front of the house and the restaurant flow well? So we have to do that. Next, we talk about integrating those design and principles. That is that ingredient to make it aesthetically pleasing and have harmony, rhythm, balance, focal points, all those things that we talked about at our last lecture. So the elements and principles design are those tools that guide good design. And like I said, it's like a cake. They're ingredients, but they have to be done in the right proportion in order for it to come out successful. And it provides just a good framework. So like in this hallway, obviously we can look at that and see what is the predominant shape. It's a circle. And what kind of line? Curvy lines. We see repetition with these pendants that hang, and they're all circles and progression like we talked about last. We have texture on the wall, accent lighting, ambient lighting. So in this hallway, we have a lot going on using the elements and principles of design. And that's how we integrate them. Now, the use of appropriate materials. I cannot stress this enough, but how we use these materials is key to safety, beauty, and functionality. So consider what is the function of the space and what's the right material. This is why I'm in Vegas, gathering up new materials, trying to always be cutting edge and know what the latest, greatest material is. Does it meet code? Is it safe? Is it environmentally responsible? And does it fit into the budget? We forget about money, but really that should be one of the top elements for the design. So solving a problem is, can you solve this problem with this amount of money? So this is where designers really have to be responsible. So you might find a fantastic material, but make sure you know how much it costs before you present it to the client to even see if it works in their budget. I just recently showed a fabulous piece of tile to my best friend for her kitchen. And when I went to find the pricing, I was completely shocked that it was $48 a square foot. And when I found out why, it's because this beautiful, which I thought was maybe a abalone shell, mother of pearl, was actually real pearl inside the chevron space with real marble. So no wonder it looks so luxe and beautiful. And of course, she fell in love with it, and it was really expensive. But at the end of the day, she did bite the bullet and ended up putting it into her kitchen, and it is a showstopper. But I felt a little bad because I made her spend lots of money. Now, We also want to make sure that this is aesthetically beautiful. Does it evoke emotional response? Is it visually meaningful? Does it follow the elements and principles of design? And is it responsive to the problem at hand? So making a space functional and making it, solve the problem could not necessarily make it beautiful. You've got to add that element into it and then fit it all in the budget. So there's a lot of things that go into making a successful, good design. And one of it is aesthetics. And of course, that's our favorite part. That's the most creative. That's like putting the frosting on the cake, right? And making the decorations. You wouldn't want a wedding cake that was just white. You want to add and make it special. Reflects meaningful and intent. So design, it has a conscious meaning and purpose. And I don't know if any of you can recognize this building. I'll give you a hint. It's in New York. It is a famous building, the Guggenheim Museum. And this is a private collection. This is a fantastic space. Even the architecture is like a piece of artwork. So when you go in here, there's something very meaningful when you're in this space. You just don't forget. You feel like you're in a beehive, kind of. It's very interesting. It spirals slowly up. And as you go through each floor, there's these amazing collections of Kandinsky and Pollock and this particular, owner's own private artwork. And so when we look at these good designs, it also should be, supported by other things like research. Doing a art museum, it takes a lot of research in lighting, security, how to house and show it, how to create a meaningful separation between the valuable art and the viewer, and how to keep flow going. So, and also it should prevent accidents. This is a pretty interesting little slope as it goes around, but it can't be too steep, so there's a lot of things going on. Does it offer comfort and enjoyment and relieve stress, right? So reflects meaning and intent is a really kind of a broad a term to, is it memorable? And is it meaningful in ways? So design also adds that. It adds a richer content as personal. And then we also have finally, does it respect the environment, the planet? Does your design, responsibly use materials that are renewable and that sort of thing? And this is really important in today's climate. We are constantly looking for sustainable materials and implementing those. As a designer, it is our responsibility, not just to the client, but to the environment and the planet, to also design responsibly. And we want to address those needs. And there are codes now that are implementing a lot of green design. Also, does it reflect sensitivity to the environment, the economic, social, and cultural implications? In a global market, we want to make sure it has that universal design elements, user-friendly. And does it enhance the human experience without damaging civilization? Let's say, just taking a lot of resources. If you can use a material that's just as equally beautiful, but sustainable in lieu of one that can never be reproduced, such as marble and that sort of thing, then, as a designer, it's our responsibility to pick the correct materials for the right application, but that are also socially and environmentally responsible. So that kind of really puts together a huge basket of ingredients of what makes a good design. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, what is bad design? Well, basically, it's like the opposite. Bad design, it doesn't meet the client's needs. They're not happy. It's not functional. Maybe you designed a cool suspended bed, but it's not functional because they have a little toddler and it's swinging back and forth and they can't sleep in it at night because it always feels like there's an earthquake. It might have looked cool and been trendy, but not functional. It might lack creativity and innovation and beauty. It could be way over budget, over time, without, meetings that it doesn't meet the design needs. It could even be harmful and dangerous to the surrounding community and the user. So these are things you definitely do not want to have in your design. So this is why those 4 E's, having education, having experience, and having examination and just continuing your education is really important, because that's going to help you become a responsible creative designer that is a problem-solving, innovative, safety designer that will be successful. So as we reflect, what are some common sources of inspiration? What sources of inspiration impact you? Think about when you design. Do you get inspired by nature? Maybe a shape might inspire you. For me, I get inspired by the materials. This is why it's so important that I go to these conventions. So when I'm exposed to just exciting, unique materials, it spars off a creativeness in me. And I start thinking about how I can use it and implement it in a design for the future. So always tuck it away in my memory. So that is always a positive thing. And when we start thinking about that, design thinking. So this is probably on your quiz. It's kind of one of those terminologies that we've chit-chatted about. But it's design thinking is a way to sketch thoughts, and involves the following skills. So when we start now design thinking, I always think of Project Runway. The moment they get a challenge, they start to get inspired. And a lot of times they have to do a challenge that's based on an inspiration, like the city of New York, or an inspiration of a play they just saw, or maybe an inspiration of a particular artist. So what do you do when you start creating? One of the things is you start to really brainstorm, sketching ideas. You'll see them in Project Runway start to sketch their ideas. As designers, we do that same thing. We start to sketch ideas. We start to pull materials and see how they can be implemented, maybe sketching out the space plan, creating little, what we call party drawings that might be like a conceptual 3-dimensional little sketch that helps brainstorm bringing the design together. So design thinking is really part of this schematic design, where you're now starting to formulate ideas based on the information that you have from the client. And you may go as far as building a model, or doing a little presentation and pulling together materials, and creating a PowerPoint, and just really start to get innovative with the design. And we'll talk about how this all design thinking is the actual model for the design process. Okay, it all starts with this, thinking about design. So let's get started, because all of these items on here are in part of the design process in different areas. So let's talk about the phases of the design process. Now, this is very textbook. And so there are several phases. And as a designer, your client may not even be aware that they're in a certain phase or not. This is more for your guidance. And this was definitely on the NCIDQ. Knowing these is extremely important. All of these are exactly textbook into this testing. So this is really good to go over this. When you start a design, these are the processes that every designer goes through. Okay, you really can't skip it. Now, there are some that may not be included in your job, but for sure, it's usually the first 5 are without a doubt things that us designers do. So let me go through. The first is pre-design. I'm going to go through each one. And we have pre-design, programming, schematic design, design development, construction documents, construction administration, and then a thing what's called move-in or post-occupancy evaluation. Okay, many designers may not do the construction administration or post-occupancy evaluation, but in order to create a successful design, you pretty much have to go through all of these in order to get an outcome. So now understanding the process flow, the design process, it is integrated. So they all kind of integrate and flow into each other. So you don't just go, oh, I just did this one and I move into this. They kind of flow into each other. And it kind of depends on the project itself. The larger the project, the more defined it is. The smaller, they might just be a few of them and they're going to flow into each other. Includes phases, not, like I said, permanently set. So you could start design development and then also be working on construction documents at the same time. Or you go from schematic, but then some parts of your design is already design development. And then you could go back to programming and gather more information. So sometimes we're doing these not exactly chronological, but they kind of blend in. So like I said, there's this back and forth movement among the process, the phases, and they kind of intertwine and blend. So the first one we're going to talk about is pre-design. What is that? This is actually really basically just identifying the client's problem and the scope of the project. This is what you have to do before you even start. This is just meeting the client just in order to put together a contract to see if they'll even hire you. So you have to at least meet and get a little information, find out what the full scope of the job is, determine even if you want the job or not. They may have unreasonable budget or timeline that you just can't do, or they might have needs that are above your skill set. So, we don't always need to take every job. We have to look and see if we are suited and prepared to take that on and are skilled. I've had other jobs that weren't my specialty and I've had to back away, or they didn't, I couldn't meet their time frame and that sort of thing. So it's basically the information you need to create a contract. I mean, you can't do anything until you say, hi, this is what I think you need. If you want to hire me, here's my contract. I'll need a retainer. So you got to start somewhere. So that's pre-design. So that's just almost like you've got to do this just to get the contract in their hands. Now, this is where once you get that contract, you start really what I almost call the first phase of design, but second phase is programming. And client programming is a document that outlines everything about the design needs, the function of the space, what their requirements are, their budget, the current status of the shell or the envelope of the building. It really identifies major tasks that we need to complete as a designer. It identifies the client's preferences, kind of like what you guys did for your My Style, how you wrote about yourself, your preferences, your design aesthetics. So you're really taking stock and inventory on all the things that are necessary to complete the job. So you might do an inventory of the furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Maybe they're keeping some. You'll discover key information. You analyze all this data you've collected. You identify design preferences, budgets, timelines, exactly what needs to be done. And then you even in this process, you start to take this information, you create matrix, relation bubbles. You start to look at the primary adjacencies, like if they need the conference room next to the reception area. This is where you get all of their wish list, everything. Residential, it may be, I need more storage space. I want a new kitchen. I want it to be white. I want my bedroom to be very modern. You start getting all of their to-do wish list. And then you kind of take all this information and you actually compile it. Some, if it's a simple job, it could be a simple outlined, document, a page of just their needs. If it gets like a huge corporate building, it literally can be a mini book. It breaks down all of the various components down to each office, what size it needs to be, every piece of furniture that needs to go in that office. So it can go from kind of just a general and small to very specific and detailed. But programming is getting all the client's information and putting it into a documented form. And then once you present it to the client, they sign off on it and say, yes, this is all the needs. Yes, this is everything that I want you to implement. So this is just a lot of paperwork. None of this has gotten creative yet. So programming. This is what you will be doing at the end of the semester when you and another classmate will exchange your designs, my style. You will interview each other, and that will be part of the profile. You'll be filling out a client profile sheet. What's their favorite colors, all the different design aesthetics and that sort of thing. So you will be doing some of these phases in the final project. Now, the second here, so identification. Oh, are they gonna, okay, so this is kind of breaking out the programming phase and some of the things that you need. So programming begins with the in-depth, like I said, interview with the client. Who's the decision makers? And you make sure that the stakeholders or the decision makers or owners are there. Don't do this huge meeting and find out that the money person isn't even at the meeting, and then you have to do it all over. So when you do this in-depth interview, make sure you got all the heavy hitters, all the money, the people who make decisions. During this, the programmer, the designer, they determine, like I said, design preferences, space needs, physical interrelationship, like I said, the adjacencies. You develop a client profile, you write it out, performs a desk audit of commercial clients. Let's say, I'm sure that we had a student that does a lot of this where they literally have to do an organizational chart. Let's say you are doing, I don't know, a 24,000 square feet of office space that you're relocating from one building to another. You can conduct several interviews. This is not always just one and done. The more complex, the more interviews you may need to do. You may even need to do them for all the different departments. So it just depends on how big, but really gathering this info. And then you get into this discovery phase where this helps you to really understand the client's problems and needs. You start to discover some of the cultural climate, the community, things they want to implement. We call this qualitative and quantitative research. You kind of, one refers to like a kind of a judgment call, like I kind of get this really young millennial vibe here. You kind of can check the temperature of the feel of a space or what they're going for. And then there's also just facts and data that we look at. You might look at case studies. If it's something very unique, maybe it's a dog groomer. And you find out that dogs can see the color yellow and blue, which I had to do that research. And so we ended up doing branding and putting those colors in there, right? Site visits, when you go to the job site and you actually visit it or visit similar projects. I went to Washington. And the doctors had me go to Spokane and look at 3 other cancer facilities to assess and get their input and see what they like and how they operate. And I use that information into this other facility. We also have to really look into applicable codes, life safety issues. This is really that discovery of all the different things. Then we take an inventory. This may involve, dimensions of different furniture. Let's say they have 15 executive desks. They have to retrofit into the new space. And we also take a look at the architectural. Is this a new construction or a remodel? We start to find out about the drawings themselves, maybe go and take field measurements or create what's called an as-built drawing. Number one thing to start a project, any project that there's going to be in construction, is to get what's called the building shell or the base plan. That's just your typical floor plan. If the client does not have that, then you may be required to draft one. let's say an existing building sitting there or a home, and they can't get the space plan, you go in as a designer, go to on a field visit, and you sketch out the entire floor plan and measure it, and then go and you create an as-built drawing. That is an actual from scratch. It's very time consuming. You have to make sure that you charge the client for that. Designers complete inventory, like I said, categorize existing FF&E. What does the client want to use? What do they need to purchase? Okay. Then you analyze this data. Okay. So you also find out how your space is supposed to function and analyze it in charts. We call these matrix charts or adjacency matrix or adjacency charts or a criteria chart. Here is a chart, and this says the front entrance needs to be near the front window. The displays need to be near the front window. So this matrix is showing relationships between all the different spaces. Okay, this is very much a part of NCIDQ. You have to actually fill these in. You drag adjacencies and matrix. They give you a program, programming. They give you the information, and then you extract from that to create these. Here's another. You may go from doing those little bubbles to relationship to doing what's called relational bubble diagrams. And in that, you place, I need the display. So they're making this matrix. So front entrance needs to be the front window. Displays need to be the front entrance. See those black dots? So if you look at this, the display is near the entrance, and display needs to be near, the POS or public interface or the storage. See, it's showing the relationships of where things are next to each other. Okay, direct relationships or adjacent. What's a priority? What's not such a priority? We call these bubble diagrams. The other was called matrix, adjacency matrix. So if we were together, and we may still do this when I see you next, is I usually have you guys take a moment and create what's called a bubble diagram of your home. And so let me show you what that entails. There are 4 major zones in pretty much any space. Doesn't matter if it's residential or commercial. You have your work zone. Now, in a residential, that would probably be a kitchen, a laundry room, okay, an office. Then you have your private zones, your bedroom, the bathrooms. Then a social zone is where people gather. So you would have, living rooms, media rooms, family rooms. That's social, dining room. And then we have zone in zone. That's when you have one zone, let's say a work zone, inside a social zone. This happens all the time. Maybe in your, maybe you added a gym into your bedroom. So you put a work zone into your bedroom, private zone. We do this to save space. You might put a desk inside the kitchen. So we do this where you can create zones and zones. So if I wanted to do my house, and this is what I would have you guys do if we were together right now. And I would have you, I want you to visualize this right now. When you walk into your home, what's the first thing? In my home, I would do a bubble diagram. Okay, this is the entry of my house. I'll put E. I'm visualizing my house as I'm walking through. Right when I go to the right is my office. Okay, now as I continue down the hallway, to the left of me is my kitchen. Now connected to my kitchen is my dining room. They're right adjacent to each other, my dining room. And then both the kitchen and the dining area have access to my living room. Now off the dining room is a private area, and we have a guest bedroom. And down the hall is a guest bathroom. Okay, so this is like a little bubble diagram. Now, as I look at these spaces, let's identify what they are. When I walk in, I have an office. My office is considered a work zone. As I continue, oops, I forgot also right here, I have a formal little living room. Little living room. This is a family room right here. That is social. You can sit there and chit chat. As you continue through my house, the kitchen also would be considered a work zone. And the dining area would be what we call a social zone. Now, a lot of time kitchens are also social. So that's kind of two zones together because people sit in and they interact. Now, as we go into my family room, that too is social. Now, an offshoot over here, the bedroom is definitely private. And so is the bathroom. So I would almost say that my kitchen is kind of zone and zone because I do think it's social. People do hang out at the big island because the way it's designed, it's to connect and people sit and chit chat there. So it can be both social and a work zone. So when you see, so all of you guys just envision and take a moment to write down and do your home. And that's one thing I want you to think about. Walk into your space. What's the first thing on the right and the left? Keep going and identify, is it a work zone, a social zone, a private zone, or a zone in the zone? Okay, so that's just a little thing we would have done together. And I want you to start thinking that's a bubble diagram showing adjacencies and zones. And let me stop that share. So let's get this and we are going to stop that share. Now we're going to go back to the element. So if you guys get a chance, take a moment, pause me, and create your little bubble diagrams with your various zones. And I'll wait. So I'm going to pause this. And now pause me and we'll get going again. Okay, so we're going to get back to this. And hopefully you guys paused this lecture, did that, and you have a clear understanding of these adjacency bubbles and all the zones. Now, once we get this in our, oops, maybe I'm not sharing yet. Sorry, I think I didn't share with y'all. Let me redo that share. There it is. Okay, there I am. Now we're sharing. Like I said, put together your little bubble diagrams and write if it's a work, private, social, or zone and zone. Now, once you collect all this information, we do more intricate bubble diagrams as a programmer. So this is when you really make your adjacents matrix. For here, they have the associate's office that's right next to the director's office. The manager's office is right next to the director's office. Staff area is right next to the manager's office. The work area is next to the manager's office. And the interview area is next to the manager's office. Do you see how when they meet together? The black dot are what we call primary adjacencies. Those are the most important. Secondary adjacencies don't have to be right next to each other, but can be near each other. Okay, so how do we look at this matrix and do this? Well, you'll see. You have, let's take a look if they did this. The work area is connected to the staff area. So that's that work and staff, they're right next to each other. They did good. The staff area is right next to the management's office. And look at that, the management and staff. Okay, so they're right next to each other. The manager's office is next to the interviewer. So the manager and the interview, there's that black dot, they make them next to each other. Now the manager also is right connected to the directors. So the manager and the director are right near each other. And then you have the associate office is right next to the director's office, and there you have that. So you see, this is how we start to break out our space. We start to look at what is important and where does it need to be. In a home, you would normally have the master bath is important, a private a primary adjacency for a master bathroom is to be right next to a master bedroom. Primary adjacency in a home was the kitchen should be right connected to the dining area. And the dining area should be connected to the family room. You see? So this is how we figure out where and how to make a shell of a building. And that's even this is what architects use with the clients as well. Here's even some more intricate ones. These, they can they have maybe major adjacencies, minor, and then not closely related at all. And they would use this, and this is when you get really complex. So summarize and present. Once you gather all this information, you summarize it, you present it in a written form. You write down the location, the project goals, the client demographics, their need, you break down square footages, maybe draw and propose layouts. This is for more commercial and very intricate jobs, big jobs, maybe photos of the job site, sketches, oral presentation sign off. So you actually give this information to the client, especially in commercial, and it might look something like this, where you actually break down each office, you say how many there are, how many square footage per one, the activities that's going to happen, the furniture they need, and any remarks. Like that is really breaking down every space. You may even see something like this, breaking down every space, the type of criteria, the room number, the square footage you need, the information. So they may be done in different ways, okay? But when you get really intricate in jobs, this is super important. So once you gather all this awesome information for programming, we're going to phase 2 of the design process. Well, we're really 3, I guess, because that pre-design. But phase 3 here is schematic design. This is when you start to do that design thing, okay? You start doing conceptual design, you start doing preliminary space planning because you've done these bubble diagrams, and now you start to kind of add walls to it, okay? You start to add furniture, you start to project budgets, find materials, and start really getting, going from data to actually a visual format. And it's a lot involved in that. So concept design. So design concept, and that's where you start to really formulate your design concept. And it's kind of an abstract idea. And it invokes like, what is the feel? I want a spa-like feeling that allows people to relax, but rooms that allow them to maybe work out and have a wellness center. Like this is like when you're coming up with the concept and the idea for the design. It's very imagery invoking. A lot of times we put together what's called a mood board, which is visions of imagery, just like you guys did. You guys did schematic design with your MyStyle. You did programming on yourself when you wrote up that little information. And then the second was schematic. You pulled inspiration photos. Same thing, but in very simple format. This is when you start to describe the mood and the feeling. So when I looked at each one of your MyStyle designs, I got a mood and a feeling of your design aesthetic. And then the design concept reflects the client's programming needs and the design intent of the project. Communicating the concept. So the design concept should be communicated to the client verbally and visually. And so this is important. And this is when you get, color boards and you show them different ideas and schematics of the space. And I want to grab a color board really quick for you guys. So I'm going to put a pause on this and get it. So in some of the schematic design, you might even go and start showing the client just loose materials. Like I might start to show them some like design inspiration, like this amazing acrylic glass that I want to use in the panels. Something like even like this might inspire me to do a whole really cool design, which I did use this for Tutti Frescoes in Santa Ana, and it looks amazing. When the light hits this, do you see the different colors? And it's got texture, and this is an acrylic. So we use this in the restaurant, and it's super magical. This, started to spur off different ideas. You might show them different wood tones that you want to put on the walls, or what kind of countertops they might need, or like, oh, this tile would look great in the back of the reception area. So it could even just be, and then, we were going to put this on top. It can show, and then once they start seeing the materials and how we're going to implement them, right? I'm using texture, using wood grains, color, all to convey a cool design idea. This is why I go to HD, because I get great, amazing materials that I utilize in my space. And so in schematic, we may start to pull fabric samples and paint colors, and then we start to formulate it together. And let's continue on that, that element. So you get inspired, you might start putting together some boards, little models, some sketches, just like freehand sketching. So you're really getting that design thinking going. So that's what we're trying to do, is communicate the concept. Now, there are different kind of concepts. There are theme concepts, and then there are more inspiration concepts. So a theme concept, concept versus a theme. Concept could be like, I want it really modern or clean and slick or relaxing, where a theme might say, I really want it to be very tropical theme, or I want it to be black and white theme, or an 80s theme, or a pirate theme. I've done both. I've done a ton of theme casinos, working on Caesar's Palace and Buffalo Bills, the full-on pirate treasure island. So Luxor, we did Luxor, is all Egyptian, right? So I've done a space, children's space themes, and all kinds of stuff. So themes are really fun because you can go for it. But so the difference, like a concept deals kind of with space planning, defines relationships, uses design elements to create kind of a feeling or vibe, where theme ties in the space together with something that is very, very cohesive in an idea. So like, especially in retail or hospitality, you will find themes. I think of that one jungle theme restaurant that used to be in I can't even think of it, but it was all jungly. It was super themed out. And you used to go, Disneyland is the home of themes. Okay, everything is a theme. You've got, the frontier land, got future land. That's very themed. Concepts are a little bit more just conceptual. It's just a little bit more subtle and not as literal. Okay, so you're developing this during the schematic. So the concept inspiration, just like when I was talking about Project Runway, your design thinking is going. You can get multiple sources. It could just be like, you find this and go, I am using this. This is so fabulous. I could see it with the light hitting it. It could be nature, just depends. It's multiple. So you want to make sure that, your design doesn't hinder your timeline and stuff, and be reasonable. But skilled designers, we use a lot of things like space planning, which is putting furniture in the space, sketching, drawing three-dimensional perspectives, rendering, making little models. You're going to learn to do this in Studio One. And that's how gets us to that phase of going through the schematic, where we're now really trying to come from a broad spectrum into a very narrow spectrum. So how do concepts and themes differ? Like I said, concept is more of a feeling or an idea that you want to convey. And a theme is literally more of literal, a literal subject matter. Like it has to be tropical. So you bring in the palm trees and that. It's very a pirate theme. And so, we all go to different places to get our inspiration. So preliminary space plan. Now you've got to take those bubbles that we just did, and you start doing what's called block diagrams, start blocking out the room. So it goes from that general bubble to like square footages and blocks. A block and stack diagram is when you do them per floor. If you have multiple floors, that's called a block and stack diagram. That's when you're taking them and doing them linearly, and that helps. The reason why we do those is, let's say you have a bathroom chase. So you want to make sure the first, second, third floor, all the bathrooms are lined up to the plumbing. So you might want to see how the rooms are all stacking up to make sure plumbing is working. So these block diagrams or block stacking diagrams are there to help spatial and start to figure it all out. Now, once the space has some kind of footprint, right, then you start to draft it out in scale. And a scale is something that designers use, and it's usually 1/4 inch equals a foot. In commercial, might be 1/8 inch equals a foot. And we actually start to draw it like in an architectural scale, so furniture fits and everything. And then we create our floor plan or use the architect's floor plan, reproduce it, and start adding our furniture in our space. And like I said, if you go to a job site and they don't have what's called a base plan or floor plan, you may be hired to measure the whole thing and do a as-built floor plan. That's when it's exactly as it's built and you redraft it on by hand or AutoCAD. So I like to use the existing architects. It's a lot less work and it's usually more thorough. So then in this process, you are now creating drawings. You start to do a furniture plan, elevations, maybe sections, perspective drawings. So these are all ways that we communicate this design intent to the designer. And then you also start to pick what's called furniture, fixtures, and equipment. You start pulling chairs and really, starting to develop the actual physical items. Like, okay, we're going to use this and we're going to use this in the back, and you really start to put it into the space. And this now is when schematic design is starting to enter into design development, because now you're bridging the gap, the overlap at some point. So this is a Frappy's. This is a yogurt store I did. So you might do a digital mood board. Like I said, that mood board, you basically did one. You did a mood board when you did your My Style, okay? That was your, like what I would say, digital mood board. So you're already in schematic. And it may have materials on it. Like I said, you might put some tile or things or loosely shown. And then you do what's called a color board, is when you really start to like hone in on them. You start to put all of those things onto a board. So you have now drawings, you have swatches of material, wallpaper, maybe photographs of furniture like here. We have paint colors, we see flooring here, pieces of furniture. So the client's getting the idea of how it's going to look. And then we start to really do our, oops, I went backwards. We start to maybe start to project some of the budgets, because now you're kind of deciding on materials and kind of figuring out how much this is going to cost, making sure that you are heading in the right direction. Once you get there, we now are really starting to have this come alive. So this is the bridging gap in design development. So what I did for my job, okay, this is a color board, and this is the medical facility I just finished installing. Okay, so let me just stop the share really quick so you can see this better. Okay, so this color board is now the final decisions the client's made. Okay, here's the 3 paint colors. I have a rendered elevation of how the elevation is going to look, pictures of the chairs, a little rendering of one of the other walls. I show the real wood material and how it's going to look in relationship to the reception area, the real glass material that goes on the face, okay? The sconces that are on the walls. I showed the lighting fixture that goes over the reception, these glass rondelles that are on the actual photograph there in the waiting area, the type of furniture I'm going to use, the wood style, the flooring. So everything that encapsulates their design now is now finally being in the design development. It went from the schematic and now into the full, we've come up with the concept, and this is pretty much the design. And I have to tell you, it looks almost exactly like this, but I just found out yesterday that they're omitting this paneling, which I'm very sad about because it is so fabulous. But they feel like the whole space is so cool that they didn't need that, but I'm kind of bummed. But anyway, this is it. It came out really great. You always put your company's logo. This is a glass tile that was in the restroom. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? This really came out spectacular. So this is what we call a color board. Okay, I put these together. They're very time consuming. This amounted to, many hours. Everything on here had a conversation, was based on programming, design meetings, meeting with them, approving every finish and every design. Okay, so you may even go as far as doing a perspective rendering, which here's one of those. So this is, you go from schematic doing maybe sketches, and if the client wants to pay for it, you can do very realistic renderings. I hire someone who's amazing. Talk about themes. This was a dog grooming theme that was based on a Hollywood theme. Okay, Hollywood. And it was called Glamorous Groomers. Okay, so this was the conceptual design. We had to do this for the shareholders to sell these franchises. Basically, the dog walks down the red carpet when it gets revealed. We have a photographer student that takes photos of the dog, and back behind the wall is a grooming. They get groomed to look pretty. I have all of these retro stars with their pets. You go in the kiosk and you type in your service. They take, and it's very kind of deco and back from the old Hollywood days, got Elvis and Audrey Hepburn, highlighting some dogs. They were going to have a screen that had all the dogs' photos running 24/7. And then you go down, you go into one door, the VIP, very important pet door, and you come out the red carpet and they actually photograph you. So this even looks like a paw. I purposely did that. So I really took this theme. We've got our Hollywood, we've got the deco, we've got our little star here, our little pet star, glamorous groomers, and the little paw, everything. So theme concept versus the other, which was more of, I want a healing environment with rich textures. So that was more of a very more general. Okay, so hopefully you kind of got the idea between themes and more conceptual. So that is when all my schematic was kind of done, and now I'm bridging over into full design development now. So this part of the space is, or of the design phase, is super important. This is when you start to bring everything together. You create floor plans, you create a furniture plan, you do, you look and evaluate the systems, the furniture systems, refine all those materials. Maybe you bring it down to like one wood, and making sure you actually really then finally create a specification, like this is the real thing. And then you develop an interior architectural details. This is when you start blowing things up. You refine the budgets and you start to get the client to sign up. I will open up a set of drawings so that you can see what a design development set of drawings look like from that medical facility that we just saw just now. And here they are. We're going to go ahead and this was our final set. And let me do a new share. Here we go. So this was our design development drawings. And we have a cover sheet. As you can see, this is a 3-dimensional rendering of the space. We put together specifications and finished schedules. And here is what we call, this is the base plan with all the furniture. Now it's a very large project, so we broke it up into pieces. So here, each piece of furniture has a call out number. You should see where the doctor's desks are, the exam rooms, the waiting areas. Then we did the other side. This is the oncology department. That secondary waiting area that we saw those glass floral rondelles. That area right there with that reception. This is the reception. Here's that wall right here. This wall is right there where this hand is. Okay. So people come in, they check in, and they sit in the waiting area. And you can kind of see that there. Okay, next we go into the second floor. We did the conference room, the break rooms, the upstairs locker shower room. Here we do a finished wall plan, shows you what finishes go on the walls, like what paint color or wall covering. We also do the reflected ceiling plan showing where the lights go, the accent lights, the ambient lights. Here, these are all fluorescents. They've got some light bulbs. Over here, there's recessed cans. Those are ambient lighting. I have accent lights in over the reception area right here. So we have all 3 layers of our lighting, okay? And then this is our flooring plan, how I put my wood grains, how they're going to lay out the flooring in all the different rooms. So this is all part of design development. And these are elevations. Here we showed the lobby with the hung lighting fixture and in the mural, the stairs. So these elevations are showing the finishes that the clients agreed on. Here is that reception area with that wood with those blue hanging pendants. Each wall, here's that wall. It shows 2 rows of multicolored wall covering. That's right here. You guys could see this right here. Okay, that's that. Okay, there's 2 pieces of the color of wallpaper, and that's showing that there on the elevation. So each one of these communicate the design. There's that one wall that has little sconces on it and a big piece of artwork, which is represented right here. This piece of art with the 2 sconces on it, that is what you just saw in a drawing format. Okay, so you can kind of see down to the restrooms and everything. So this is how we pull it all together through these elevations. And then we do details. We actually blow up pieces of the millwork so you could see how it's built. You could see it in detail, the reception area, where everything is and how the glass tiles is set there. So that really, there's lots of details, as you can see, we did. So this was a pretty big old job. So you see that design development and all that is encompassed in that portion. So you go through schematic and it kind of crosses into fine tuning the design. And so there we have that phase 4. So during this, you're doing the floor plan, revising furniture, like you saw, and all of those different things. And then you finally get the client to sign off. So like floor plans, this is when you really evaluate the base plan. You make sure that the building codes are being implemented, that everything is ADA, like there's turning radiuses for the wheelchairs. I have to make sure my furniture is spaced out accordingly. It says my husband accordingly, and evaluates, evaluate, and you refine the plan for the client. So here's like, you can go from a sketch, this would be more schematic, into the actual real layout. So design development, it really refines everything. And you may even do a couple layouts during schematic, and then you finally come up with just the right one. You will do a couple of layouts like this when you do your design development for your final project. I teach you how to do some space planning. And you make sure that the furniture fits. You know, you put that right size in there, you scale it out so you know it fits. You analyze and make sure it's efficient. You know, is there some good circulation going through this space? Okay, then you you have to evaluate some of these those building systems. How's the natural lighting? Remember day lighting? How's that going to affect the space? You know, right now we're kind of in a dilemma. They need window treatments because you can't see into the exam room, right? There needs to be privacy. That's going on. You know, things that, you know, is there any daylighting strategies, any lighting design systems? You have to avoid glare on computers and that sort of thing. Color and light location. So we did that in the reflective ceiling plan. Then you kind of refine all that FF&E, that furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So you make sure that all those interior materials that go on the wall that you just saw, you know, your flooring, your specialty glass, your finishes, all of that gets refined in design development, just like we finally came up with that color board. And it reflects individual nature of proposed design intent. So you're right now, you know, kind of coming through and refining. You evaluate the sustainability issues, the materials, the maintenance, the durability. So now you're really, really getting to. With all of the things that you picked, you make sure that they are going to meet the client's needs. design development also for the architectural details. Now you start to get into like adding, niches and carving out the space, doing those details, making sure that, they put the tile in there and the quartz on top. And so you use that time, like you saw, my big details. I create millwork details, do all the elevations, showing everything. And making sure like all of the soffits or niches, things that add and make it rich are added at this point. And then you kind of refine the budget. So you kind of did a preliminary budget schematic. Now you really know you're using this. It comes, it's $5 a square foot. You figure out, kind of do a rough estimate of materials and labor costs. You go, okay, this is $1,200 a sheet. I can't use very much of this, right? So you have to weigh how you're going to use certain materials. It's always good to know the pricing of things. You might even have to reselect some of the items or see if they're still in stock. Sometimes these jobs go so long that by the time you're calling, they're already like discontinued. You never know. So really crunching numbers here. Then once again, on this phase, you get the client sign off. Yes, we're good to go. That's what I want. And any revisions that might need to be made, this is the time to do it, because once we pass this phase, we go right into construction documents, and these things become ready for all the contractors to bid. So we've got the design. This is it. We are so good to go, right? They signed off on this. They saw my preliminary drawings, and for my construction drawings, I added more dimensions, more details, and they became ready for the contractors to build or to bid. So the contract document phase involves preparing formal, standard driven documents. That's when I wrote all the specifications, installation information. We develop those working drawings. We provide a specification book many times, bidding, negotiation. So they take these drawings and they send them to different subcontractors, and they start to get all the numbers. Or maybe if they haven't picked their contractor yet, they give them to different contractors and let them bid the whole job. And then you get the client to finally approve. Once you finish these up, they sign and approve those as well. Working drawings will include things like you just saw on my working drawings, that front page, any construction plans, furniture and equipment, that furniture plan we did, the lighting and mechanical plans, power plans, finished plans, door schedules. These are architecturals. These are things that are all included. This isn't necessarily a set of ID drawings, but it could be. Sometimes the designer will do the door and window schedule. Sometimes that will be in the architects. So when you put together a big set of drawings, you have the architect's drawings, the mechanical engineer, structural engineer, the plumbing drawings, the electrical drawings, then the ID drawings are last, interior design drawings. So ID drawings. So this is a set of ID drawings. This is a restaurant I did, Poke Tomas. And it's a pretty small drawing. So we have our cover sheet. Here I have this, it's a pretty small space. So here's the floor plan. And here's the reflected ceiling plan. So this is what's going on the floor, and this is what's going on in the ceiling. It shows all my decorative lighting, my service count, my soffit above, everything that's going on with the ceiling with specialty notes. And here all the different furniture with all the right aisleways and elevation notes, and I'm showing my seating and that sort of thing. Then we did our elevations of each one of those walls. And then we put together an item schedule of all the furniture, and then finish schedule with all the finishes. So this was a set of our ID working drawings. Then we finished up with every elevation and then got into details. We cut that booth in half, showed how that built-in booth was made, how the eating counter was made. As these go to the millwork subcontractors, flooring people, painters, they all take a look at these drawings and they bid. And then we create a specification book. And a specification has specific specification sheets, all the information. Now, sometimes I don't do this. Sometimes just those specifications are in the drawings right here. That information's there. but sometimes they even need further details. So that's when we take each individual finish like this, and I write an entire page about this, okay? And that's in a spec book. So it's precise written instructions for the builder tradesman, describes the appearance and performance, construction method. It's a lot of details. Building permit authorization, construct the building to different locations. So maybe the spec book might have building permit information. So here's one of my specifications. This is mine for just what you saw, or this is another medical facility. Has always the client's name, the location of the project, the item number. So this is called Flooring One, FL1. It gives my company name. This was when I had a different logo. And then all the information about this particular vinyl flooring. Then I had a second specification. This is all the information about this flooring, this carpet. Now, if I am purchasing these items, I do what's called an FF&E list. This is like a checkoff list. I don't give the client all this information because I don't want them to purchase it themselves. This is for the contractor to purchase. This is what I provide for my clients, is an FF&E list of all the items that they're getting that I'm purchasing. So there's just different kinds of specs. And then finally, you know, during this, we go through the bid process in selecting a contractor. Now, some clients already have their contractor, and so they go through the bidding process with their subcontractors. So selecting a contractor or subcontractor occurs after completing these drawings and the specs, and you have to send them out to various people. Now, in big projects, you may find that they involve a competitive bid process. And so what that is they send things out called a request for a proposal, and they'll do this to different architects. A lot of interior designers are required by code of ethic for their client to get 3 bids on each item if they're acting as the owner's representative, just so that they make it fair, you know, and the owner gets to choose. So that's the process. Client, once again, signs off on that whole process once they choose, and then they start to compile all the contract documents, get approval, and then they submit any change orders at that point. And then we go into one of the more final processes. It's called the construction administration. So we went through the construction documents. A lot of designers stop there. I kind of did some of this construction administration. I take that back. But a lot of times I just stop there. That's the end. I don't do phase 6. I don't get to do the implementation and oversee contractors. But in this case, I did do an install in Washington. So this phase, like I said, doesn't always get done by designers, but it's when you are overseeing the construction and you are the owner's representative. So maybe you schedule maybe you even schedule paying the contractor's cost. You ensure that the contractor is conforming to your design and making sure they're doing everything. We use shop drawings. We make sure that we get those shop drawings. The contractor gets them from the mill guy. And once he signs off, he lets you look at them. You create punch list, little to-do lists for the clients as they're starting to build the space. And you just monitor the details. So sometimes they hire us to do this and sometimes they don't. But I would say more so not. I don't do this a lot. A lot of times I give them the design, they take their drawings, they go bid it, they know how to build it, and I'm done. I get my final check, I might come and install my furniture, but I'm not overseeing construction. But we did do this. We did a lot of this at the winery. So scheduling and monitor, like I said, the contractor develops some kind of timeline, you're making sure that they're on schedule. Might include other trade people. You're constantly monitoring budget. So it's definitely almost like a contractor, creating this punch list. Like I said, the designer reviews the shop drawings. There's a lot going on. We identify all the different areas that need to be done. I just did this for Bellingham. I took a photo of like a corner of a wall, said add corner guards here, add tile to this. add the paneling. Like I had to do a little punch list of things that weren't missing. So that's something that we do in that area. Phase 7, final phase is they've now completed all of the construction. So during this phase, the designer sets move-in dates and they arrange for the furniture. So I went in, the construction was being done. I flew in for phase 7. I skipped like phase 6 and went in and delivered the furniture, had it set up, making sure that everything was ready to go for them to open up the doors. So I'm really like the very last person because you want all the construction done. You want to make sure they get a post-occupancy evaluation so that the city comes and they sign off that it's ready for human beings to now go in. It's safe enough. So we get it perfectly staged and the city comes in, they sign off on it. And then now you could start training, you could start opening up business. So we arrange installation of existing clients' items as well. Assess client set. And then I'm so sorry. Post-occupancy evaluation. I didn't mean that. What you want here is a certificate of occupancy to get in. That's by the city. It's called a certificate of occupancy. When I was at Bellingham, we were praying for the certificate of occupancy. So on that Saturday, the city came in. We called him the authority having jurisdiction. So it's called an AHJ. He comes in and he signs off for occupancy. But if you're a designer, some designers come back to a job site 6 months later and do what's called a post-occupancy evaluation. And they see how everything's running. Is your furniture holding up? Is the finishes holding up? Everything that you designed, is it working well? I don't do this a lot because I have a lot of communication with my clients, and sometimes it opens up the door for them to complain and, oh, well, I didn't really like this. It's getting dirty fast, and then you feel so obliged, the job's over, you're moved on. So this is optional and not everyone does that. So as you can see, there's a lot going on. We're going to do just a quick little video right now. Let's see, we're going to do a quick video on this. Let's see if I can, actually I'll just watch it. Is it there? Let's see if I can copy it and put it on, share it on a YouTube. Let's see. Let me put it on. We'll watch this really quick. Let's see. Okay, let's see if it works. Maybe not. Let's see if I can get the right one. Paste. There we go. And maybe it's coming up. I don't know. They have Johnny Depp up there. So let's see what's going on. Not working. Okay. So let me get back to you guys. Let's see. I don't want to share this part of my screen. Let me stop that share. Okay, now we're getting back. Let's see what's going on and why this is not just turning on. I think I need to, let's see, make this full. Well, there's a little video and let's see, maybe I put it on Canvas really quick for you guys. Okay. So sorry, guys, let me share screen and see if we have it on Canvas, which is right over here. Sure. Okay, let's go to Canvas and see if we got it in here. Now, I want to let you know that this video will be right here, the recorded Zoom video on the very bottom of the design process module 8. So yes, I did put it on here. So let's just take a look at this and watch this so we can end it up. And it's just very short.
What is an interior designer? As interior designers, we have been trained to use space effectively and to enhance the quality and safety of interior areas while making them aesthetically pleasing. With this training, we combine knowledge of building codes, critical and creative thinking, psychology, and technology for the purpose of improving quality of life and increasing productivity. All of this is accomplished to protect your health, safety, and welfare.
The programming phase is where the project is built, not brick by brick, but decision by decision. The programmer researches current and projected needs in such areas as information, privacy, and security. A thorough programming process is essential for maintaining an orderly and cost-effective design process later in the project.
Schematic design is the initial design phase, translating all the research gathered from programming into rough sketches and ideas for the client. Interior designers start an intensive creative process of brainstorming and sketching, letting all design ideas flow. We combine our skills of problem solving, psychology, color theory, environmental design, and codes to rearrange these spaces in a way that will be intuitive and safest for future and current users of the space.
The design development phase of the project refines concepts created in the schematic phase. First, we draw the building shell. Next are permanent fixtures and millwork. Then it's time for the furniture. And of course, plenty of notes to make objects clear. Now it's looking like something.
During the design process, we also select appropriate materials based on their application. For example, here is an illustration of a piece of contract furniture with commercial textile applied.
A perspective goes something like this. The most common thing that a client sees is perspective or 3D modeling of the space. This program is one of our greatest tools. Within this 3D model, we can help display our design to a client easily with the help of SketchUp.
In this phase, drawings created in the design development phase are turned into working documents for the contractor. Go back to our floor plan. First, we need dimensions, markers are added, door tags, and a legend. Finally, a drawing title and markers.
This is the construction phase. The role of the interior designer is to adhere whether the work conforms with the construction drawings and specifications.
Interior design is about much more than aesthetics. It is the combination of a series of complex decisions to solve a problem.
Okay, so you could easily rewatch that if you want. Is that in a nutshell? Mine's a little more elaborate. And I do want to discuss what's going on next today. So don't forget, after you view this, that we want to be mindful that the midterm is due today. So make sure that you go to the midterm exam. This is April 27th now. This is today, and make sure that you click onto that, and you only have a limited time. Else, you're going to run out of time. So basically, the midterm goes all the way to thus far, where we've done this far. So you want to make sure that you can, it's all the collective quizzes we've done so far, basically. So all the answers will be a lot from those collective quizzes. So if you've been doing the quizzes, go back to some of those vocab flashcards and just refresh yourself, and you will do fine. It's worth 60 points, a lot of elements and principles of design. And I'm sure you guys will just totally rock through that. I have also too added the recorded videos for the principles of design as well as the elements. If you need a refresh, because your project, I believe, will be due on May 11th for that large element and principle design project. So today, what is due is the lighting project. So you have to make sure you get your color in and your lighting in. So that will have been 3 projects so far. Our assignment 1, which is my style. Assignment 2 is the color, and assignment 3 is the lighting. I have posted all my lectures on those areas that have samples of students' work. So if you get stuck, please fast forward to that area so that you know exactly what I'm expecting. So I want to make sure that we went over everything in this midterm, your lighting project due, and there you can find this lecture right here in the recorded Zoom design. So that's where we are right now, apparently. And I want to stop the share. And just thank you for joining me. And I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but hopefully this has really covered the design process with our pre-design, getting those contracts, our programming, which is gathering information and all of the needs of the client in a verbal format. Then schematic, where we start doing design thing. We start coming up with creative ideas, gathering materials, space planning, and start doing some of these preliminary sketch drawings. Then we go into design development, where we go from the end of schematic, where we're starting to have a strong concept and really fine tuning it to a color board and interpreting it into a set of drawings. Space plan, reflective ceiling plans, elevations. Once those all get signed off and we know exactly what we're picking, we price things out. Then we go into those construction documents. We take our documents, we add more details, things that call outs, specific elevations, detail drawings, so that they can go to contractors to be bid out. And then finally, execution. They start to build it, and there is that phase of construction administration, where if you're lucky enough, you get to go on site and oversee the construction. And then that final phase is the execution of your FF&E, which is what I did. And so that kind of covers it all. And you can see there's a lot of work to be done, but it is a process. It's just like baking a cake. It's building something from scratch to make it a real thing that people live in. That's what I love about design. It goes from an idea to something real. I hope you guys have a great week. Good luck with all your projects. And don't forget, keep working on getting those element and principles of design photos together. I'm excited to see your project. And this is worth a lot of points. So make sure you do not let it slide. Okay. You guys have a great night. Thank you so much for meeting with me and watching this. And I hope you all have a great weekend. Take care.